Imagine working for 40 years, doing everything you thought you were supposed to do, only to discover that retirement isn't freedom, it's fear. One unexpected bill wipes out your savings, your dream home suddenly feels too expensive, and instead of enjoying life, you're counting every dollar. Most people think retirement is ruined by bad luck. Bob was about to discover that it's usually ruined by a handful of mistakes almost everyone makes, and they don't even realize it until it's too late. David was 30 years old, had a decent job, and believed retirement was a problem for older people. Every payday followed the same routine. Bills came first, entertainment came second, online shopping somehow squeezed into the middle, and whatever remained stayed in his checking account until it quietly disappeared. Whenever someone mentioned retirement investing, David laughed and said he had decades before he needed to think about it. Then one afternoon, while eating lunch in a small park, he noticed someone sitting beside him with a tiny briefcase, a green tie, and the same calm smile he always seemed to have. It was Bob. "Mind if I ask you one question?" Bob said. David shrugged. Bob pointed at the skyscrapers surrounding them. "Which building do you think is stronger, the one built carefully over 40 years, or the one someone tries to finish in the last 5? David answered immediately. "The one built over 40 years." Bob smiled. "Then why do people try to build retirement in the last 5 years of their careers?" David laughed, but the question stayed with him. Bob pulled out a notebook and drew 2 tiny circles. One circle represented someone who started investing $300 every month at age 25 and stopped after 10 years. The second represented someone who waited until age 35 but invested the same amount every month until retirement. David confidently picked the second person as the winner. It felt obvious. They invested for much longer. Bob slowly turned the notebook around and showed the numbers. Thanks to compound growth, the person who started earlier often finished with significantly more money despite investing for fewer total years. He always imagined retirement savings like filling a bucket with water. The harder you poured, the faster it filled. Bob explained it differently. Retirement is more like planting a tree. Planting it earlier means nature does most of the growing. Planting it decades later means you spend years watering something that never reaches the same size. Suddenly, retirement wasn't about being rich. It was about giving your money enough birthdays to multiply. A few weeks later, David proudly showed Bob his savings account. "See? I have $15,000 sitting safely in cash." Bob nodded but asked another question. "Safe from what?" David answered, "The stock market." Bob smiled again. "But is it safe from inflation?" David paused. Bob explained that if prices rise around 3% every year, the money quietly loses purchasing power even though the number in the account stays exactly the same. Imagine buying 10 slices of pizza today. 20 years later, that same money might only buy 5 or 6. Nothing disappeared from the account, yet something valuable disappeared anyway. Retirement mistake number 2 wasn't taking too much risk. It was taking so little risk that inflation slowly stole the future. David decided he finally wanted to invest, but another problem appeared immediately. Every headline seemed terrifying. One week markets were crashing. The next week experts predicted another recession. Then another article claimed everything was overvalued. David waited for the perfect moment. Weeks became months. Months became almost 2 years. During another walk in the park, Bob looked at him and asked, "Have you noticed something?" David sighed. "The market keeps moving without me." Bob nodded. Trying to perfectly time the market is like waiting for every traffic light to turn green before leaving home. You'll never start the journey. Instead of chasing perfect timing, Bob introduced him to consistent investing. A fixed amount every month. Good market or bad market. Sunny headlines or scary headlines. Progress beats perfection. That strategy felt almost boring, and that's exactly why it worked. Some months David bought investments when prices were high. Other months he bought when prices were low. Over many years, the average worked in his favor. Bob compared it to buying groceries every week. Nobody waits for bananas to reach the absolute cheapest price in history before eating fruit. People simply buy what they need consistently. Investing, Bob explained, should feel more like grocery shopping than gambling. Just when David believed he had retirement figured out, another surprise arrived. His company offered a retirement plan with matching contributions. He had ignored every email about it because the paperwork looked confusing. Bob nearly dropped his little briefcase when he heard that. Your employer is offering free money, and you're walking past it every payday. Bob explained that if David contributed enough to receive the full company match, his employer would add extra money automatically. It wasn't a bonus for working harder. It wasn't a promotion. It was simply part of his compensation package. Retirement mistake number 4 was refusing money that already belonged to him. David signed up that same week. Watching the employer contribution appear felt like getting an instant raise. It also taught him something bigger. Many financial opportunities aren't hidden because they're secret. They're hidden because people assume they're too complicated to understand. Bob's favorite lesson was becoming clearer every day. The simplest habits often produce the biggest results. Years passed, and David's investment steadily grew. Then success created a brand new danger. His income doubled, then nearly tripled. Instead of increasing his investments, he upgraded everything else first. A luxury apartment. A new SUV. Expensive vacations. Designer clothes. Every raise disappeared before it reached his future. Bob invited him to dinner one evening. They ordered identical meals, but Bob pointed to the bill afterward. The meal lasts an hour. Financial freedom lasts decades. Which one deserved more of today's paycheck? David laughed, but he understood immediately. Retirement mistake number 5 wasn't earning too little. It was allowing lifestyle inflation to consume every raise. From that point on, David made a simple rule. Every time his salary increased, at least half of the raise automatically increased his retirement investments before he had the chance to spend it. Because the money disappeared into investing first, he barely noticed it. Yet year after year, those automatic increases quietly transformed his future. Bob loved automation because it removed emotion from good decisions. Then came the biggest test of all. A major market crash. News channels screamed panic every day. Friends sold everything. Co-workers insisted investing was a mistake. David opened his retirement account and saw years of gains disappear almost overnight. His finger hovered over the sell button. Then he remembered Bob's tree analogy. Storms don't mean the tree is dead. They are simply part of growing. Instead of selling, David continued investing every month. When the market eventually recovered, those investments purchased during the downturn became some of the most valuable ones in his entire portfolio. Retirement mistake number 6 wasn't experiencing market crashes. It was abandoning the plan because of them. Decades passed faster than David ever imagined. One morning, he stood in the same park where he first met Bob. Only now his hair was grey, his schedule belonged to him, and work had become a choice instead of a necessity. He could travel with his family, help his grandchildren with college, support charities he believed in, and enjoy mornings without an alarm clock. Retirement hadn't become perfect. Life still surprised him. But money no longer controlled every decision. It had simply become a tool instead of a source of fear. Bob smiled, straightened his green tie, and closed his little briefcase one final time. The best retirement plan isn't built with giant decisions, he said. It's built with small decisions repeated long enough for time to reward them. David looked around the park and realized the greatest investment had never been finding the perfect stock or predicting the perfect market. It had been starting early, staying consistent, ignoring the noise, and trusting simple habits year after year. If there's one lesson worth remembering, it's this: retirement isn't something you arrive at, it's something you quietly build every payday. And as Bob walked away toward another conversation with someone who thought they still had plenty of time, he glanced back with one last smile.